Where we at? We here? Mic check. 1, 2, 3. Are we coming in? All right. Hey, looks like we are live. Checking my mic real quick. All right. Hey, looks like we are live. Yeah, sounds like that's coming through A-OK. So, right on. Hey guys, my name is Theurgy. I create role-playing games. I illustrate them and I publish them online. And for the past year or so, I've been focusing attention on Spelljammer, Combat and Exploration, a new document that we've just published on DMsGuild.com. That is a deep dive into combat and exploration for Spelljammer, using 5e combat action economy for you to have your team work together to fight monsters, ships, etc. And exploration for a lot of mechanics like astral space and exploring the astral sea, all sorts of like conditional modifiers like your ship catching fire, oxygen supplies, how long does it take for air, a lot of just quality of life stuff. Actually, let me crack that open here real quick for us to take a look here, and we're going to go into Asteroids, and let's go look at our final document. I probably should have had this cracked open for you guys to take a look at anyway, but hey, here's the document. It's 107 pages of deep dive mechanics into how combat works at larger scales, new ship building rules, fleet and squadron combat, as well as like actual tactical movement through asteroid fields. I'm actually going to need to look at this one later on today while we're here on stream. And so you can see like all these little asteroids that we have laying around on the map. I want to extract these and have them become just assets that you can just drop onto your map for you to be able to build dynamic combat encounters with obstacles and things that need to be overcome during combat. Yeah, so here's the thing, and then the last 25 pages, Appendix 2. Appendix 1 is a random wild space generator to create different types of planets and systems and atmospheres, living conditions, and inhabitants that can survive within them. And then the second appendix is a 25-page conversion guide for Lightus Araxis, providing all the tokens, resources, maps, and tools that you need to use the mechanics that we introduce in this book, and using Lightus Araxis as a live fire exercise on how you can implement these things, not only in Lightus Araxis, but also for your own campaign moving forward. So like I said, we are working on, it's just a bunch of fun stuff here. All the encounters, we added in new encounters that lean into and highlight how ship combat and movement mechanics can work in your campaign. Examples of squadrons and fleets against each other. Yeah, Lightus Araxis added mechanics for the Citadel, and we even added a bottom side of the Citadel, which I haven't seen anywhere. Yeah, there you go. So some ads, check that stuff out. So this is Lightus Araxis, the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration Guide, and right now we're creating asteroid assets. So we're peeling this apart and building them into separate tokens. For folks that are interested, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon to get notification when I'm live in the future. Here is a full playlist of all 363 episodes of me building different assets, as well as the entire PDF that we just showed. You can find the book here on DMsGuild if you would like to pick that up. Yeah, 5-star rating, fantastic. Happy to have it. Thanks guys for looking at it and thinking it's cool. I appreciate that about you. I just posted I'm live on the X Twitter platform. You can follow me there at Theurgy. And big shout out to the Spelljammer Preservation subreddit. Our Spelljammer, great place to go sharpening knives, get great ideas, and have fun conversations. Thanks for being supportive, guys. All right, so hey, let's get back into it. So here is the Theurgy space encounter map with a slew of asteroid tokens. Here is our asteroid workbench where we've been plucking assets and dropping them in, and then we go and put them into our asset file We currently have 47 individual asteroids, and we have 36 clusters. So we only need 3 more individual asteroid assets, but we need another 14 clusters. So let's go ahead and continue working here. I'm just going to grab chunks of rock and then rework them so that they sit pretty on their own. And once we get through those, we'll start working on some additional battle maps to have as environments to sling ships around and have combats on. So let's take this. And then let's go into here. There you go. And we can grab each of these assets and use the lighting that we have in them to our advantage to have these things kind of have its own internal make things work together like that. Transform. I only need 14 more of these. I need 3 assets, so we can go into the document and grab some of those bigger rocks and build those out. But for now, this is what we're doing. So zoom in a little bit, clean up the edges on these some. What we'll do is once we have these assets done, we'll just make a little cheap little so my goal is the Spelljammer book is listed at 20, but we have a coupon for it for 15 that's on the page. What I want to do is take these 100 token assets and put them on DMsGuild as well. Offer it for $5, which is basically a nickel per asset. But what I want to do then is bundle them together so that we drive down the cost of the Spelljammer book to be $15 and shave this down from $5 to $1. So, we'll make it $4. Let's make this $4, and then we'll bundle it with the Spelljammer book. So it's currently the Spelljammer book is currently available for 15. If you go to the landing page of it and click on the coupon button, you can get that $5 off. And so what I want to do is bundle this together with that so that the Spelljammer book remains 15, and then we take this from $4 down to $1. So you'll get this and the Spelljammer book ticket price. What is it? The price tag for both of them is 24, but we'll drop it to 16, so that you gain added value and more assets for you to be able to conduct ship combat and lock in a low price for you guys to pick up the book, which I think ultimately will make it more inviting for people to want to pick up. It's been selling anywhere from 2 to 6 copies a day since it's been released about 3 weeks ago, which is amazing. I am thrilled and delighted how many people have responded saying that it's the stuff, that the mechanics are what they've been looking for, that it's adding a lot to the depth of their campaign, that it's answering questions that they had that had been left out by WotC when they published the setting, when they rebuilt and republished in August 2022. It takes a while for me to build things, but that's only because I actually because I want to rebuild the experience. I want to be able to bring in those second edition ideals, but update them and make them work as intended for 5e. And I like the bones of what Wizards provided in the August 2022 reimagining, but like a lot of stuff, it's just bones. There's not enough crunch on there. You're only getting gristle. So I wanted to make sure I added in a ton of details and little nuanced mechanics that are going to be niche situations that only will come up likely if you're really diving into Spelljammer mechanics and making a real campaign out of it. That's when you're going to start running into trouble, because you're going to have enough situations arise that they're not going to fit within the normal box of the narrative that Wizards presented for the limited amount of content that they provided for Spelljammer. It's very surface level. Once you start getting into weird niche circumstances, you're gonna want to have more ruling. You're gonna want a little bit more crunch on your rules, so that you can have you can empower yourself as a DM to be able to have rulings, so you understand enough of the rudimentary mechanics of Spelljammer and 5e that you can come to natural conclusions that you can self-reinforce and support with consistent rules that go along with other options that are presented in these books. So just providing a more fleshed out world of physics that a DM and players can rely on and expect to build consistency inside of their game. Because if you have consistent rules, then it helps preserve the suspension of disbelief so that you can stay immersed into what will feel more like a fully functioning realized world. So when you're only skimming across the surface and you're not diving into deeper mechanical questions, it like if there's supposed to be oxygen around, like if there's supposed to be breathable air on every planet or asteroid that you step on, but there's no life or vegetation there that would be interacting in a biome to sustain a life sustaining environment on that planetary object. Why does it have air that you can breathe, right? Because the book says that after 100 days your air burns out, and if you don't have any kind of plantation vegetation to swap CO2 with oxygen with creatures that may be inhabiting the rock with the vegetation, then you can't sustain a viable biome long term. It's just going to burn out after a few months. And that's not enough time for life to establish its presence on a rock. So you have to have meaningful air supply and ecology mechanics that anyone can just kind of glance at and get, and that clicks into place. And that's the kind of stuff that we have inside this book for people to be able to have just enough logic built in to answer those. Like, you've got the surface level where you're just looking at, so hey, that's cool, and then you get down below, it's like, wait a second, why does that work? And then if you can provide an easy answer of like why you can sustain an environment perpetually on basically like anybody, like any kind of planetary object, you can get through that. And if you can get through that first wave of scrutiny, then it's going to lock in. It's like, okay, yeah, we can play along with that. And then you go deeper and you get into more technical stuff. It's like, wait a second, we have a population here, it has air, I see there's vegetation, but isn't it just going to eventually burn itself out? This isn't sustainable, is it? Well, if you provide rules on how much massive vegetation you need to living life, then you can just eyeball real quick, is there a balance between the plants and breathing animals in this environment that is going to be able to build a stable ecology? And once you can provide just basic information about how to sustain that balance, then you can just drop in a population that supports it, and just using some very basic rules, and you're good to go. So that will resolve it. And you can do things like, well, yeah, if we blow out half of this rock, like if we tear it apart in like a moon attack, as in like attacking it with a moon, like throwing a moon at something, like will the planet survive that impact? Well, we can provide you with massive collision damage mechanics and how that affects air supplies and what catastrophic damage can do to large objects. We have all that in there. It's enough physics and consistent 5e rules grounded in 5e mechanics that already exist in the player's handbook in the DMG for you to see where these things are coming from and understand the expansion and like just the next step. It's taking next steps to move you towards, here's a way for you to portray your multiverse in a sustainable, logical progression, so that everything locks in with each other, so everything will make sense. And you can use what you want and leave the rest. It's all modular in design, so you can take as much of the information as you want to make to lean into what you like. If you're already if you already fancy another system of some sort, like maybe you like using, what is it? Stars without numbers for like your random system, like to generate random spaces, then you don't need to use my random system generator. But if you did, my random generator provides all of the same keywords and mechanics that are introduced in the exploration section of this book about sustainable environments and all that ecology stuff, and assumes that's the frame of reference when building a wild space system. So it becomes self-reinforcing and just helps demonstrate and use these mechanics in a more tactile, practical situation instead of just being theory crafting. I'm rambling a bit, but I am just scratching at rocks, so don't mind me. So if you're new to the channel, I stream 10 days a week, 10 times per week. Monday through Friday in the morning, we're building an Eberron adventure, fighting undead in the Carnwood of Carnath on Eberron. On lunch times on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays, we do game mechanics. We've been developing the martial power system for the past year, which is going to start playtesting next week. There's a poll open on my Patreon. If you don't know where my Patreon is at, it is right. Where'd you go, buddy? Additional playtest content and articles on Patreon. So if you were to jump over to my Patreon, I posted a poll. So people that are, hey, we got a tie currently. So participants on the Martial Powers playtest, you can help decide what day of the week it is that we're going to run the playtest. And if you're a paying member of the Patreon, then you have first right to any seat that's open. And at the end of tomorrow, this is Saturday, the 6th, 6th, yeah, it's the 6th right now while I'm streaming this. Tomorrow will be the 7th. Tomorrow night, we're going to close the poll. And if we still have a tie by tomorrow night, then I'm going to put it to my Discord server and ask folks that sharpen their knives there if anyone's interested in participating, what day of the week would they want, Monday, Thursday, or Saturday. And then we'll have 4 or 5 seats open. I prefer 5, just for just to have a lot of bodies on the board. But 4 is acceptable. So folks that contribute at least $1 in my Patreon have first rights to any seats that are open. And once those are claimed, any remaining seats that are open can be raffled off on my Discord channel. So we just updated my Discord community link is in my my Patreon profile. So here's the Discord link. I just updated that yesterday, so it should still be live for you. So you can swing by and hang out in my Discord community. It's still new and growing, but would love to have you. If you have any questions about anything regarding Spelljammer, Color Mana, Eberron, or just my game philosophies in general, you are certainly welcome to jump over and kick up a conversation with us. I'd love to have you. There we go. I'll bring that in a bit here. If you've been catching my Monday and Thursday night stream, I've been building the Vocath base into a massive 500-foot battle crab. I'll need to playtest that in a not too distant future as well. So that will be a second short-term playtest option for players, basically just to sling some siege weapons at ships. Yeah, that's cool. I like how this looks. So I'm going to file, save as to computer as a PNG. Go down here to our clusters. This will be cluster number 37. And now we'll go over here. We'll grab another chunk of rock and do it again. 13 to go. I think we could probably find 13 in here. Let's just, yeah, just grab. Let's see if I can get all of these rocks here to fit in that space. Close. Let's bring those down a bit. And let's rotate these so they line up. This is the gig. This is what we're doing right now. Technically, this is asset production. It's a little bit of artwork, but it's mostly asset production. I'll basically drop these into a zip folder. I'll want to assemble all the rocks onto a single 8.5 by 11 page that we can offer up as a free preview for folks to see. Like, here's how many rocks you get with this. Go for it. And then we'll need to build, basically take that one sheet and build a cover out of it using the same format as the book cover that we already have. But we are not there yet. I just got to finish off. I want to finish these assets first before we start delving into that. So here, I want to take this, rotate that there, go to here. Where do we go from here? Unclear. Sculpt that and clean that up a bit like that. Well, thank you, Timely Timer. I like how this is sitting. It's very pretty. I like painting rocks, man. It's very meditative. It's all basically the foundation is rocks and mountains from The Joy of Painting with Bob Ross. That is my my virtual tutor for landscape environment painting. I basically learned from Ross. I used to watch brand new episodes of him back in like 1982 1982, playing Legos on the floor on Saturday mornings and waiting for the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon to come on and just watching Bob paint. Kind of set me up from the very start, like at a very, very young age. Like, this is something that you enjoy doing. So I'd make little Lego castles and like little dungeon things and listen to Bob paint. Pretty fantastic Saturday mornings for a little kid. And look what I evolved into. Like, this stuff has been in my life my entire life, and it's just, I got to pick up on it and integrate it into my own activities. It's just such a fun, crazy coincidence. That feels pretty good. This is all literally shaping up very nicely. Just using a very basic smudge brush. And my opacity is 80. My strength is 80%. So it grabs and sustains 80% of the color from pixel to pixel to pixel. As I drag it further and further away, it fades out. You see that? It loses 20% of its integrity every time for every unit. Like the brush is 5 pixels in size, so when I grab a chunk of paint and drag it, it sustains the color for 5 pixels and then degrades 20% 5 pixels. So over the course of like around 50 pixels, you can see it's almost completely disintegrated because it has so little color information left after degrading 20% per 5 pixels. That's how it ends up blending out. So like that, the strength of the brush is the percentage of color information that's retained over the size of the brush that you're using as you move it across, which you can once you get the feel for, like, that's the math of it. Once you get the feel for it, you know, it's like if I grab this, I can drag it, you know. Like as I'm dragging across an object, I'm picking up the paint from underneath it. And once I move out here into transparent space, you can see how what remained of the color information bleeds off very quickly. But like while I'm inside the asteroid, it seems like I have perpetual paint, because every time I move into a new 5 pixel space, it's picking up that new information, adding what I had on top of it. So I'm it's basically 120% pixels at that point, and then I pull off 80% of it, so it degrades, but then gets new information constantly. So there's a lot of consistency that remains inside of the pixel space, but once I move out of it, it erodes almost immediately. Interesting mechanics there. It's very, very clever design. Well, we had a wave of sickness at the office this week, so we did not have an opportunity to begin our second adventure. for the Asteroid Belt mining campaign that we have in our Eberron game. But I think everyone should be back in the saddle next week, and we'll be able to start progress on the next adventure and see how that all pans out for people. I'm really excited to see what happens because they're basically trying to clear bugs out of an asteroid so their miners can go in and extract the platinum that's in the rock. But the bugs are hostile. They know there's a means of communicating with, like that they have a language. From the last adventure, they determined that there's some sort of intelligent language that the bugs possess, but they have a hive mind. So if they're going to get any kind of progress in like negotiating with the bugs, then they're going to have to connect with the ruling, like the queen bug. They could go in and try to kill all of them, but then they lose the opportunity to acquire the bugs as an asset because they'll have killed them all. So it'll be interesting that their priority is to get the platinum. And if they go in hostile and try to kill the bugs, they can definitely get the platinum unrestricted. But if they can negotiate or somehow recruit the bugs to be allies, then they could get the platinum and have additional workers to be able to get more platinum or more to extract wealth from other rocks in the future as well. So I don't know how they're going to shake that out and make it work. But on top of that, one of their territories is currently being camped by elven warships that are more powerful than them. So they'd have to get really, really lucky to have like a combat. Leading negotiations with the elves, with leading in with combat, is probably going to fail. So they have to decide if they want to do espionage or a diplomacy mission. And while they're dealing with the bugs, they can't also deal with the elven warships. So they relegate the warships to NPCs in their guild, which basically becomes a skill challenge that can be done at the guild level that any of the players can like if there's 3 skill challenges, then 3 players will roll one of the challenges each, and depending on what the result of those accumulated ability checks are, it will shape the story and narrative of what's going on with the elves, what information could they glean, what conditions were offered to appease the elves to leave the area so that they could reclaim it and continue harvesting ore from the asteroids in those areas, unfettered without risk of being destroyed. And so I'm really interested. They don't have to decide yet, but in the next 3 weeks they'll need to decide what kind of a mission that is, and then make their die rolls to see what the result is. And I am very much looking forward. There's a couple of different ways that there's a couple of different things that the elves might be trying to do there, but it's all virtual. It's all Schrodinger's adventure right now. Until they actually make the die rolls and know how successful or difficult a time they had negotiating with the elves, one way or another, will determine what information they get and what next steps might be available to them. And if they do really well, they'll have resolved the issue without further conflict. If it's a mixed result, then there's a challenge, there's a complication that needs to be dealt with. And if it goes disastrously, then it's going to create additional complications as well as escalate the current complication. Like they might take over additional territories, which further strangles the resources that the team can get in their operation, falling behind in their production pipeline. So a lot of moving pieces, but it's just a couple skill challenges. That's how I evolved the. I was trying to use the royal we there. It's not appropriate in this statement. But yeah, the mechanics that I developed is actually kind of an evolution from Adam Hancock's Balduran's Guide to Kingdom Building, and that he frames communities as character stat blocks, like a character sheet, and leans on a type of ability check to resolve conflicts. And he was our editor for the Spelljammer book, so I kind of leaned into that idea and built an alternate resolution mechanic that kind of became its own thing. But it's incredibly versatile and very fast. a very, very fast way for teams to allocate resources, issue commands, and accumulate wealth through third person NPC organizations that the team can either be a part of or in command of. So it's a really flexible system, but it's not published yet. It's still in design, and there's other projects that I'm focusing on. So I'm going to let that percolate for a while at my home table in this Asteroid campaign, and if it continues to prove entertaining to the 6 players that we have, then it's something I know we can go to market with, and I'm looking forward to that. That feels pretty good. I think we're just about done with this one. Yeah, there we go. Let's do this file. Save as NP to computer as a PNG file. Let's make this cluster 38. And a bit of variety. Actually, let's just grab both of these. Nice. Well, hey, what's up? Bird, it's been a while, my man. Glad to have you. So this is our 39th asteroid cluster. We have 47 individual asteroids. They're all unique and different. Where are we at? We're at, Jesus, 10:30. I still have an hour left. I probably won't get this all done today. So I might spend. We've been building the mega crab, the Vokath base as a 500-foot mega ship, as a crustacean, like crab lobster type thing. That's what we've been doing on our Mondays and Thursday nights. But I'm thinking I might devote more time Monday night on asteroids, because I want to get this. Asset packet done and put out there so I can treat it as a coupon for the Spelljammer book. I love making little like vignette pieces, like little offshoot things, like little 10-page dives into a particular class or something like that I can then bundle and offer as basically like a coupon to the bigger book that's associated with. Like my face is itchy, don't mind me. Like the color mana system is a really great example of that. This is a bundle of like 6 books. Like the core mechanics is the tap on tap burn 5 color mana spell point variant rule core mechanics, and then we have Knights and Tricksters, which is like third casters using color mana specifically. And the elemental key is like using the color mana system but offering it as the 4 elements instead. So we have an elemental system like Airbender that you can use, as well as exploring the Way of 4 Elements as like a half-casting class with cantrips and stuff to make it continuously be able to create value. And then we had the Spellpoint Warlocks book, which was like a hyper focus of the core mechanics from the color system, but like really diving deep into just Warlocks. If we go into that one here, then that one builds off of, like, we have the bundle here of Spellpoint Warlocks and the Pacts and Patrons of Ravnica, which is the 10 guilds of the Ravnica setting converted into their color philosophies. So like is like red and blue, and like Boros is red and white, and Azorius is white and blue. We have specific patrons for each one of those. And so when you become a guild mage in Ravnica, you're basically becoming a warlock of the guild that you represent. Like the Azorius Senate has like, you know, its own list and it has its own subclass features for you to, like, each of them have their own unique ability. And then if you couple that with the spell point warlocks, then you can take that color identity of the 10 guilds and inject them into, dropping down here into the color magic system, Pact Magic, Mystic Arcanum, to Epic Wish. Yeah, there you go. Color mana and Ravnica backgrounds. So you can take the spell point warlock system and then convert the spell points into the color mana system, so that you can have a mana pool like an Azet warlock, an Azet guild mage has a pool of red and blue mana to be able to tap and trigger different effects off of your spell list. So we get back out here and we go back to the main bundle. And then we have the revised color. We have the revised 5-color spell list, which is pay what you want, and it provides you a color breakdown of all the spells that are in D&D. This pay what you want has everything that's in the player's handbook, and the entire list broken down by every book, by every class, including subclasses, is in the core mechanics book. So as one of the zip file add-ons. So basically the point is that I like to make a flagship book and then start adding content to it to expand the mentality or the options that are available from that initial flagship idea. And then since we published the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration book, we now have pull that up. And it's just a single book right now, but once we get done with these assets, it can basically be like a coupon to drop the cost of this book and to give you all the Asteroid assets to be able to work together. So anyway, that's the idea behind it. So I love doing these little vignette pieces, that little breakaway parts to offer, like, basically like additional downloadable content, basically is what it is in a video game term. So anyway, rambling. But that's how I like to conduct business. So make a thing and then start supporting it with additional things. So like Vokath's Mega Crab Ship, these Asteroid assets. We're planning on doing the Living Ship sidekicks as a side project when your ship becomes a living creature and it becomes a sidekick for you in 5th edition. So you can give it commands to, like, hey, fly casually while we go down and explore this dungeon on this moon, or like drop down here and pull us out. We have we need to extract, so come fetch us. Your ship basically becomes like a massive pet, for lack of a better word. So we want to provide different means of petifying your ship, which is going to be probably the first major expansion piece that we do. It'll probably be like a 20-page expansion of the Spelljammer rules in general. It's all kind of in there. It's like alluded to, but isn't specifically spelled out. Just like the Mecha expansion that we do, we didn't specifically build humanoid-shaped ships, but we provided all the mechanics for ships being animated as though they're animals or creatures. Like, that's just the effect of attuning or focusing and empowering a spelljamming helm. It basically, like a druid wild shaping, it infuses the pilot's body or their mind into the ship that becomes their body, much like wild shaping. And so the shapes that we have are generally like insects and fish and birds, because that's the motif of vessels in just the Spelljammer lore. That's just how they build them. But Gundams, Evangelions, Veritech, these different Jaegers, these humanoid shaped ships are total. The rules already exist inside the Spelljammer book. It's just not specifically called out. Anyone that spends time with the rules can suss. It's like, wait a second, the limbs of these are just weapons. And here's the weapon scale depending on the size of the ship that they're in command of. So if I made a humanoid-shaped ship, I'd basically be able to make a Gundam. using the rules that are already present, but I didn't specifically call that out. So that means I can build a 20-page expansion. It's like, hey, I didn't specifically say it, but here's a bunch of different shapes that ships can be, and then we can do a deep dive into like anything. Like Lancer is pretty popular. We can literally do anything in Lancer with these mechanics using 5e mechanics instead of 4e mechanics. So if you like the idea of Lancer but you don't like the mechanics of it, then we can offer you a 5e alternative with the mecha ship expansion that we can build, and that'd be like a 25 some odd page book. And it's not my top priority right now, but it's something I'm thinking about. So once I get done with Vokath's Mega Crab, showing what a 500-foot scale ship would look like, or like how that would operate, then we can start doing these more niche things and build out like a whole line of alternate spelljamming mechanics, just like I did for the Color Mana system. We can do the same for these SCE mechanics. So I'm a rambling, hell yeah I am. Trying to make a living and doing the best I can. And when it comes to painting, I hope you understand. That I am a rambling man. And since there's a different size of scaling on maps, like the 5-foot scale, 50-foot scale, and 500-foot scale during combat, it presents different type of tactical challenges and different types of optimized combat strategies that NPCs and monsters can use against your team to add more variety in the type of combat that you have in a Spelljammer campaign that we can lean into, like with Nyogi War Journal, or like Illithid Tactics of Enslavement. Like build neat little like guides that DMs can use. It's like, yeah, if I'm going to have Nyogi here, here's some tactics that Nyogi like to do to overcome and enslave ships. So like a Nyogi Enslavement Manual or something. God, what a triggery title that would be these days. I'm tempted to make that a title just to piss off the algorithms. That'd be really funny. Let's go with, I think this is good enough, so let's go and save this as a new cluster. PNG, drop down here, what was this, number 39? Yeah. And our goal is to get to 50. So we've got 39 clusters, we've got 47 individual asteroids, and yeah, so that's gonna work out. Let's go over here, let's grab another jumble of rocks. Let's grab these rocks. Birdman, what you having going on? Enough about me, let's talk about you. Happy little chunks of rock. Holy Hannah, you got it going on, my guy. I am honored that you would spend some time here on stream with me. Hopefully it can be a good study hall environment for you to feel chillaxed. I worked and studied in school as well, and that is a mean feat, my man. Stay diligent, lots of self-care. Respect the burnout. So I get rid of some of the jaggedness and make sure I've got good lighting. A lot of this map that we're using have like these shadow pockets, right? Like you get into these clusters and have these little dark zones. But as I go about and rearrange the shape of the rocks in their relative position to each other, it changes the lighting that's present on them. So I have to basically. It basically makes them into new assets by adding new lighting features because, you know, art and pixels. But I really enjoy. It's very meditative for me. It's making asteroids is as meditative as making mountains in a landscape painting. And you know, us Bob Ross enthusiasts, we love our mountains. We love our mountains and our fluffy clouds, and our happy trees and our little friendly squirrels. What's up? Like 20 hours of work and 12 credits in school. Right on. That's excellent. I'm glad to hear it, man. That's fantastic. That's excellent. I'm glad to hear it, man. I did. I think my heaviest semester was 15 hours and a 30-hour work week. It was ridiculous. I had no time at all. But it was for a limited time. Like at one point, I was working 2 jobs, so I was working 13 days out of 14. But I was working at a microchip factory and a restaurant. So I was working a hell of a lot. But it got me out of debt really quickly. It was worth it. It was only for like 2 years, but I was able to knock down my debt very, very quickly and getting free of it. It was super rewarding. It's grinding hard is something that most can tolerate as long as they have an end goal that they can keep their eye on. Because then, like, if you're sprinting towards a goal that you can visualize, then you're not thinking about the individual steps. You're just running. I have to fall into that mode of process often while I'm working on a book like this. It's like 100, like the Spelljammer book was 107 pages of like hard mechanics, very little fluff in the book, and that's an intense workload, and the risk of burnout is pretty high on projects like that. But if there's a very clear vision of what it is that you want to achieve, and it's just a matter of investing the time for it to naturally just manifest on its own, then all the pain and effort of going through that process just kind of fades away because you have the accomplishment that you know, like, this is something that I can achieve. Like I know I can push myself this hard. And then it's a matter of, you know, is the next project that I'm working on, am I passionate enough about it to drive that hard or even try to push myself to work harder? And that gives you a general scale of how challenging your life is right now. If what you're doing is pushing yourself to the limits where you're exhausting yourself, hopefully that results in you being able to hit the pillow at night and just crash out and get solid sleep because you've drained your battery productively through effort that sleep rewards. Like zombieing out on a phone also burns down your internal battery, but it doesn't get nourished by sleep nearly as well as emotionally rewarding effort does. I don't know the mechanics behind that. Like, I don't know if there's actual chemistry behind the different chemicals that are released between dopamine addiction versus serotonin pride. I bet there's actual chemistry that goes on behind that. I just know that if I get 7 hours of sleep after being a zombie on my phone versus 7 hours of sleep after working out and knocking down 3 pages of book, the reward of sleep feels much different. In the latter, it feels very rewarded, as opposed to the former. It's just the physical manifestation of the zombie that I put my brain through all day already. And depending on what kind of work you do, kind of determines like how easy is it for a person to trigger that pride sense versus menial tasks. And I think that's a pretty Zen Buddhist sort of conversation about where are you investing your attention in the tasks that you're performing? Because you don't always have control over, like you're choosing to, like if you go to class every day, you're choosing to obey that schedule, and you have to at some point be at peace with this. It's just like with jogging in the morning, like people that are running enthusiasts. You have to have that commitment to a larger goal that you're striving towards. And just being fit isn't good enough of a goal to keep a runner on their feet during rain. I'm working towards a marathon. Marathons are so valuable for runners because it gives them tangible goals where they can rank themselves, as opposed to just how long did it take me to do this? Can I go back to bed? Having a marathon be built into your objectives as a runner is a great way to keep your ass running. Just like I know all these things are going to be part of a book bundle that I'm building, so it motivates me to keep pushing my pixels at whatever speed I can manage at the level of quality that I want, which pushes me to be able to build higher quality at a faster speed, and to learn new techniques and acquire new skills that will allow me to do so. Speaking of which, I'm pretty happy with this cluster. This one felt like it took less time than the last one, but I also feel like I'm in more of a flow state right now than I had been earlier. And I'm going to attribute that to you, Willie. Thank you. I like this. This feels good. Save as PNG. This should be cluster 40, is that right? Sure is. Nice. There's a Nicolas Cage movie called Next. Came out in 2007. It's basically they don't go into the details as to how, because he doesn't know, but he can basically see 2 minutes into the future. He made a living off of gambling and doing magic tricks in Vegas, using that fascinating but limited ability. And it's a decent show. It's a movie. It's a decent movie. I enjoyed it. The acting's good. It's Nicolas Cage. What's not to love? But my favorite part? Hey, my favorite part of Next was since he can see, so they had this narrative, this scratchy camera thing going on, when he's seeing the future. It's got this weird scratchy double lens sort of thing going on that let you kind of implied the future shifts around, so he's sensing possibilities. But the best part of it was in the credits. The credits were, he can see 2 minutes in the future, and the credits were 2 minutes long. So when the credits started, it did a scratchy lens effect, and it flashed the end screen, where it has the all the nobody was hurt during the making of this film and all that blah, and all the emblems of the different organizations and companies that were associated with building it. That's at the end at the very end of all credits. It showed that real quick, and then it disappeared, and then they started playing the normal credits, and then after 2 minutes it got to that screen again and it was over. That was the most meta thing in the entire film, and I fucking loved it. It made me laugh out loud. I love that kind of shit. So fun. So fun. Yeah, Next, 2007 Nicolas Cage movie. I think the actress was Jessica Biel. She was the lieutenant in the 18 movie that used to be Face's girlfriend. The 18. If you hadn't seen the remade 18 with Bradley Cooper and that dude from District 9 and oh god, Liam Neeson. That is a great fucking fun movie. It is the male equivalent of the Cameron Diaz version of Charlie's Angels, right? The Lucy Liu, Cameron Diaz, well, I can't ever remember Drew Barrymore, the 3 actresses that were in the remake of the 2 Charlie Angels movies. Those were crazy fun McG movies. But the A-Team is the perfect trifecta to go, like Charlie's Angels 1 and 2, and then the A-Team is like, it's the perfect triad of silly gal pal type movies. It's just what a great marathon. Like, that's like a nonsense Sunday marathon that I would encourage anyone to embark on. But yeah, Jessica, I think that was her name, Jessica Biel. I think that's her name. Anyway, she was the main actress that was in the film. Good cast, fun premise, the really good momentum. Yeah, Nicolas Cage next, 2007. Very, very much what I'm going to redo this. So I'm going to save this again. There we go. Chip, chop, chiree, chiroo, trump. Let's grab our next chunk. I only have 10 clusters left to go. So it doesn't look like I'll get them done in the time frame I have available, but I certainly enjoy the effort. Let's give that a twist. There we go. Dirt, dirt, dirt. Time for a sip, you're right. Time for a sip, you're right. Wet the whistle. Okay, now my coffee bean is getting jealous. Let's slam some coffee. So Monday through Fridays in the mornings now we're creating map and token assets for the Eberron adventure we've been developing with Andy Headley and Stuart Braz. And so that's Monday through Friday. We've been refining the martial powers mechanics at lunchtime, Monday, Tuesdays, and Fridays. We've been building Spelljammer assets on Mondays and Thursday nights, as well as like now Saturday mornings. I have a martial powers playtest that's going to come up. That's going to be starting the earliest, depending on what date everyone chooses. It'll start as soon as April 13th, and that'll run through August. We're going to go from level 1 to 9. Basically a 4-month campaign of rubble belt hex crawling with emergent story, so that it can be more of a West March style game of like pick a direction and run and fight the stuff that gets in the way and keep going until the session ends, and then whoever shows up the next session, pick the next direction you want to run in and tear up stuff in that direction and keep going, gaining assets, enchantments, artifacts, and allies along the way. Which is a very hex crawl sort of emergent story progression strategy for improv D&D campaigns. Hex crawls are the best, especially if you have a team that's into exploration and likes that likes to find solutions to problems that don't necessarily require hit points to do, like negotiating or like Scooby-Dooing, like creating traps or running away from enemies and finding ways to outsmart them. I like that style of game a lot. And 5e Heroics lends towards battle, because combat is, although a real emotional drain and a massive time suck, it's what most of the game is built around, and it has the most safety features. Ironically, it has the most safety rails built into it to keep your character alive and moving forward. by making it so difficult to kill your character, but lean into combat at the same time. It's a real paradox. But I like the house rules that I use generally in a standard 5e game makes it very lethal, because missing an attack doesn't mean 0 damage. Missing an attack is like the enemy makes a saving throw. Like if you hit, they fail their saving throw. If you miss, they succeeded their saving throw. But there's still damage being taken in either circumstance. So when you in the house rules that I prefer to run as a DM, if you get into a fight, you take damage, guaranteed. It's just, do you take enough to do you take little enough that you can keep pushing forward, or do you just get completely wrecked and you need to reconsider your next strategy? And that has much more consequences, which makes the decisions and risks that the players take much more satisfying, and it has a lot more adrenaline attached to it, because they know that if they pick a fight, it could get them scrapped. Even at 15th, 17th level, I can keep my players on the ropes because I'm always damaging them. And it wears that even when they have vast resources of being able to cast like 60 spells a day, I can burn them down pretty fast. Because they can only use so many resources per round versus how much damage are they taking. That makes them have to reconsider whatever strategy they're currently employing to overcome whatever their current challenge is. It's a more brutal style of game, but it leans into the thrill of consequences, which is something that 5e is critiqued for lacking. Like the depth, like the meaningfulness of consequences in 5e are diluted significantly compared to any other version of the game. And then it ironically leans into the narrative aspect of role-playing versus the more war game mechanics of it. Less long-term consequences. It's a combat simulator game that leans away from consequences of combat and emphasizes culturally more social time, social challenges versus combat challenges. So even though 60% of the resources are like 60% of the rules and philosophy of the game are built around wargaming, in practicality, the way that 5e expresses games is only like 20% of it is combat, and the majority of it is develop your character's background and interact in a LARPy storytell environment, which is a very, very different vibe. That style of play doesn't require any rules. It's like LARPing. So table LARPing is what I think the label is. That's not to disparage it, it's just a disconnect. A lot of people that play D&D are looking for a combat simulator that's fun, fast, dynamic, consequential, that requires risks that they feel like they're being heroic, and that heroism requires risk, requires harsh consequences that threaten the characters, so that when they overcome their challenges, they're evading those consequences through skill and luck and good decision making, which is a different vibe. It's a very, very different vibe. I'll leave it at that. Like there was I ran across a Reddit thread recently, and the OP was asking, how do I get my characters to run away from fights that they aren't supposed to win? It's like, you don't. If you're going to insert a fight that they're not, well, you shouldn't insert fights that they aren't supposed to win. You should insert fights that it's unlikely they'll be able to win, and leave it up to them to figure out if it's tougher than them or not, so they can devise a strategy to avoid combat or how to get out of it if it goes pear-shaped. but you don't build the encounter for them to lose. Like, you don't introduce a villain NPC in an event where the players have no agency. That just makes them hate you, and thus not and by extension not want to engage with whatever is presented in that non-circumstance. Because the team shows up because they want to rage against something. If you build an environment that allows them to have satisfaction, interaction, and pushing against the villains in the game in a satisfying manner, they're going to want to work with you. If you provide unfulfilling storylines and take away their agency, they don't want to fight. They're not going to want to fight the NPCs. They want to fight you, because they won't be able to separate their player sense of dissatisfaction from whatever righteousness the characters are embodying. That line gets conflated when the players are offended. And the only thing that really offends them is taking away their agency and making their choices meaningless, and deceive them, trick them. The DM is tricking them or taking away their agency unfairly. Then that generates player spite, which gets expressed to their characters by not conforming to whatever story you're pushing at them. Because once they identify you're pushing a story, they're going to fight against that story and try to subvert the storyline or dive into a tangent and avoid the majority of content that you've prepared for them, because they're not interested in what you're preparing. Most tables don't have the self-awareness to realize that's what they're doing, so they will basically quiet quit the campaign while they're still playing, and the DM is just attempting to get them back on track, but the team views that track as a railroad, and they don't want to go down that route, even if it's what the DM has prepared. They want to fight it because they feel like they're being treated unfairly. The reason why they feel treated unfairly is because most people feel like they're being treated unfairly in real life. So if they're engaging in your game, they want fairness, where they know or feel that their actions have consequences far beyond what their own life would normally allow them to do so. That is the quintessential power fantasy, where they actually have the fantasy. The fantasy is that they have power at all, and they have the agency to execute that power, to make decisions that they think are meaningful for what fictitious life they've created, or what proxy those characters are representing for themselves emotionally. Like, this is deep psychology shit, but it all plays out at the table, and if a DM doesn't understand these things, it ends up working against the game, which is why so many games self-destruct, especially at new tables, is because there's a philosophical or a psycho-emotional process that's being mishandled that causes the campaign to detonate. But you have to study these things. You have to actively want to find answers to these things and hold yourself as the narrator accountable. What did I do that steered them off course, or made them not want to be on course? And once you get good enough at it, you're no longer railroading anyone, because once your improvisational skills evolve to a point where you can be comfortable with the team doing whatever it is that they want to do, and you can see the fun of what their option is, then you don't care what it is, and so you don't have any plot. You just have a merchant play style, which is whatever actions they take will have a natural consequence. And once you've built up your chops enough as a DM or a narrator, you'll be able to naturally find what type of consequences to their actions feel the best in the style of game you like to run. And there's millions of different mixes and blends of what those risks, consequences, and default reactions in a campaign world are, based on who the DM is and what kind of tropes she likes, and what and how well the DM's preferences click and vibe with the players, which is why it's good to know who your players are. I often recruit strangers into my games, but it's always with the intent of making them an equal player. And if they're smart and tactical and sincere and looking out for the interests of other players on the team, they end up becoming friends, because they're demonstrating I want you to trust me. I want to be a part of your success. Let's work together. That's how partnerships and friendships are built. Mutual goals supported by personalities that click together well. You can help make sure that your personalities at your table are going to click well by having goals in the campaign that everyone enjoys the ideals of, like freeing people from imprisonment or slavery is a great theme that folks generally can get behind. This is like a least common denominator of good campaign background tasks. But any specific nuances inside of it, like I like a lot of combat, I like a lot of puzzle solving. Well, then can we have puzzle-based combat? And that's probably going to lock in interest for those type of players if you as a DM know how and enjoy running those kind of scenarios. So once your DM vibes with the kind of game that the players prefer, then that table will never fall apart because it's scratching a very specific itch that's very difficult to find a twig that'll fit. That analogy kind of got away from me. Just about done here. Knock down another cluster and move on to the next. There. Cool. Another fun little cluster. Center that up. Little file. Save as. Who are you? Cluster 41? Yes. Who are you? Cluster 41. What's next? What is next? Let's grab, this looks like a fun chunk. Let's grab this. Very nice. After a sustained period of time, the brush strokes become feel a little repetitive, and I start to have emotional fatigue because it's not. This is assembly work. It's not necessarily art. It's more art. It's manufacturing. It's an assembly line of taking a chunk of rocks, smoothing out the edges, adding in lighting sources, saving next bundle or next cluster. And at some point, the thrill and the emotional satisfaction of texturing another block of asteroids, it runs out of emotional fulfillment. That's when your meter runs out. That's a good indication that you need to take a break, switch gears, decompress. But this is the only time I have today to work on these asteroids. And we're making progress, but we're not done. So I suspect we're going to come back. I like the idea of continuing with Vocav's Mega Crab on Monday, but for the sake of the bundle, I may decide just to continue working on Asteroids Monday night, and then picking up Vocav's Lab on Thursday again, and hopefully having this asset packet published on Tuesday. That's the goal, and then the rest of today I can focus on the Eberron text to update the adventure information and descriptions, like the text blurbs and the details. Because after creating the Light of Zaraxis adventure at the back end of the Spelljammer document, it's kind of reshaped my focus on like what adventure content should be, and so I'm kind of reassessing some of the way that the information is structured in the Eberron adventure that we work on Monday through Friday in the morning. So I'll be focusing on that off screen here today once we are done here, and we will be done here in about 20 minutes. So I'm going to hit a refresh, and I need to wet my whistle again. I'm out of water. I'm going to be right back. Hold on. BRB. I just want to refill my glass. So I still have some water around here so I can keep myself from drying out too much. But yeah, it's nice meditation work. I really enjoy the ability to lay back and just let art sit. Becomes real meditative. Hey, freelance. Let's metagame while the DM is gone. DM is gone. All threads are now pony. Zona, it's good to see you. How you doing? Zona, it's good to see you. How you doing? This is our last 20-minute burst we're on right now. You know, it's life is good. I got a ton of shit on my plate, but it's my fault. I load my plate up so that I can always. The more things I have to do, the more I can bounce between different things to keep myself from burning out on anything in particular. It also causes everything to progress very slowly, but all together. You know, like it's a. I feel like sometimes I feel like I am a sheepdog. It's trying to keep all of my herd of ideas together. Blah. Just about. I'm gonna break up this texture a little bit more. It feels a little too smoothie. I like the glossy lighting effect. I like that a lot, but I wanna break up the texturing a little bit more, so give it some more rough. Which this brush I'm using is not specifically built for. I'm gonna up the opacity. 70% strength. That's pretty good. Like if I don't have enough grit and like contrasting direction in the brush strokes, it doesn't feel gritty. That gritty comes from contrasting angles and lighting. You like pockmark everything. Like this is the smoothest looking rock so far. So I'm gonna go in here. I'm gonna churn up that texture just a little bit like that, just to rough it up some. Yeah, yeah. I have my downtime. I specifically schedule downtime in my life so that I actually have a pretty compartmentalized life. Like I'm always switching from one gear to another. Between day job, family stuff, workbench, art, home, like home care, sleep, food. I've organized a lot of the time in my life between these different tasks, so I know what I'm supposed to be doing. And if I'm emotionally incapable of doing that, then I take a nap. Nothing puts you back on gets you back on track like a good nap. A lot of people feel like taking a nap is a waste of time, but it rebuilds the battery that provides you with the emotional strength to be able to endure the list of tasks that you built for yourself in the first place. So the sleep is critical. If you can't find yourself focusing on what you're supposed to be doing, then what you're supposed to be doing is something that doesn't require focus, but doesn't waste your time. Sleep never wastes your time, regardless of it being a time drain on what you may otherwise view as productive. You have to think about what's the large scale effect is you're down for X hours. But the small scale benefits is every task that you do, you're capable of bringing more presence to the activity because you aren't exhausted and fatigued. So it actually becomes better time spent than squeezing out an extra 2 hours of your day of low production yield. Like it would have been better to get quality sleep in at that time, so that the other, 16 to 18 hours that you have available to be productive, you can just bang on at. Exactly. It's real, man. Yeah, because you're failing those ability checks. The more exhausted you get, the more likely you are to fail those ability checks and those saves. And your attack rolls are going to miss more often. You're going to move less. Better just to get the sleep in, so you keep so you can keep your die rolls normal or at advantage. But if you can gamify your life that way, it becomes more fun to accomplish things. If you build tangible benefits and rewards into stuff. Grinding for the sake of grinding. Okay, so the secret of artwork and large effort intensity is feeling rewarded for the actual task that you perform. Like I get dopamine hits every time I scratch in like a neat little like a pockmark on an asteroid, and it blends nicely and it ups the level of quality for the asteroid as a whole. That gives me a very, very small dopamine kick of an internal emotional good boy, and I move basically from kick to kick to kick as I go through the piece, and each one of those little kicks is a little nuclear bomb that causes my body to propel through space a little bit faster, and but like zombie scrolling on a phone is the opposite. That actively drains the momentum from what I do, because it pushes me into a passive space where I'm barely having, my opinion is basically that was entertaining, that wasn't entertaining in like 13-second to 2-minute chunks of time. And that is actually a fatiguing task, because it's requiring my attention without results, which is also why like too much TV makes you feel tired, because you've been devoting a large scale of emotional energy into a passive task that doesn't manifest or create anything for you. It's just observations that you categorize as entertaining or not entertaining. If it doesn't engage you in any way, if it doesn't require you to take any kind of action or have any active thoughts or decision making, that task becomes destructive. and makes you fall back to needing a nap to be able to basically hit the reset button. There we go. And those rocks feel pretty good. So I'm just gonna do a little touch up there, touch up here. Save that. I'm going to file, save as, it's computer as a PNG. This should be cluster 41. Nope, 42. Wow. Making moves. We only need 50 clusters to be done. And it is 11:21, so I have less than 10 minutes left in my morning. So we shan't get there today. We'll see what this week brings up and how I want to devote my time. Where do I want to? Let's just keep picking up the edges. It's like a 4-cylinder Nissan out my window. It fires up. It almost sounds like a rice burning. Like a rice burn motorcycle. It's got a high-pitched whir to it instead of like a growly mechanical engine. That feels pretty good. And smooth that out a bit. There we go. I like these vertical cuts, like these lines going through here. I like those angles. I want to preserve those a little bit, but I also want to soften them a little bit with some more texture. Hey, what's up? So you're starting to design MTG cards for Tap and Tap? Well, no shit. D&D specific FX with new mana cost to boot. It's coming together nicely. About the cards finished. Hey, neat. Right on, man. Be welcome to drop some of those into the Discord server in the Color Mana section if you want. Smooth it out a little bit more. just about, that feels about good. Need a little, break up this texture a little bit more over here. Get rid of the brush stroke feel to it. Yeah, right on. Yeah, it totally gets. No arts yet. Right on. Yeah, it totally gets. No arts yet. Right on. Are you building around like a specific series or block, or is it just general ideas built around a setting, or is there like any unifying concept behind the designs, or is it just like whatever's like low-hanging fruit for now, and then like to prove out the concept before developing further? That feels pretty clean. I'm thrilled that the color mana system has inspired you to be productive for yourself. That brings me great joy. I'm trying to find cards that already kind of have an easy to trans. Yeah. Low-hanging fruit, as it were. Yeah, nice. I feel you, man. Yeah, finding elegant solutions to express narrative through mechanics is just that's the real satisfaction of good design kicking in. Let's chop that up a bit, blend it in. Yeah, I think I'm okay with that. Let's hit save there and save as PNG. 43. Yeah. How do you translate drawing cards? Oh, got it. Are you actually asking me, or is this one of the things that you're challenging yourself with and you want to figure out for yourself? Sure, no, I never mind. What I don't want to do is lead the witness. If you're struggling with your own design philosophies, and you're wanting to suss it out, the last thing you need to do is have a know-it-all come in and drop an idea that derails where your own creative process was going. But yeah, I'm happy to. Of course, I've got opinions. I'm happy to share them as long as they're wanted. It sounds like they are. So. Yeah, drawing cards is a resource. So when you draw a card, you are stocking more resources onto your character. So an effect that draws a card could do something like... So what are resources? Resources is mana. Resources is action economy. It's hit points. And it's die rolls. So, like, for example, a die roll resource would be like advantage versus disadvantage, or like gaining a bonus. Like, draw 3 cards in 3.5, an effect that would like draw 3 cards could be like add +3 to the saving throw DC for the next spell that you cast, for instance. Like if you were to do a storm effect, that would be a good way to go. Draw a card could be depending on what the flavor of the card is and like the mechanics that are backing up the card draw. It could be like roll a number of like have multiple like multi advantage, like stacked advantage. Like if I draw 3 cards as part of like a spell casting effect, then it could be like if I'm making a spell attack roll, it could be like roll 3 dice, use the best result. That could represent the cards that you're pulling. Or like it could be like drawing cards can. I'm not necessarily big on restoring mana to a mana pool unless you do a rest of some sort that would naturally restore it. But like gaining temporary hit points, kind of like in the martial power system that I use. Like if you give up an attack during your attack action, it gives you a free point of temporary mana that can be spent to on a strike or a smite power. So drawing cards off of a card mechanic can go in that same sort of direction. When this creature enters the battlefield, draw a card. That could be translated into something like when combat begins, this creature gets an extra attack that turn, like in the first round of combat. Like that card is that draw a card is acting as a bonus resource, and in combat, resources is generally hit points, mana battery, and action economy. So if it's a martial based creature, it could be if it's a draw a card effect, then it would be like your multi attack has 3 attacks on the first round, kind of like how assassin characters get like a high crit chance if they can catch something during a surprise round, for instance. Is a similar sort of idea there. I'm being vague and nebulous on purpose because unless I'm looking at it because there's sorceries, instants, and creature cards, and enchantment cards, and artifacts, and all of those could have their own drawing mechanics. And depending on what the card is doing and what its benefit is supposed to be, kind of sets the tone of, is this a resource, manipulating resources, manipulating action economy, manipulating dice, manipulating hit points. So there's a lot of variables with no like draw a card is such a simple mechanic in card decks, but if you're doing a dice-based game that's translating those mechanics, then you have to think about how the cards relate. What does drawing a card relate to with rolling dice? You know, giving the option to kind of choose what the resource, what the resource the card gives. Right, that could be viable depending on what the flavor is. You want to create an internal consistency. So once people start seeing enough of your translations, they're going to kind of just automatically grok. Yeah, I bet this is going to like give me advantage on an attack or something like that. Like a martial effect that has a card draw could be like increase the chance of crit this turn. Like expand my crit range from a 20 to like draw a card 19, draw 2 cards 18, 19, 20, draw 3 cards 17, 18, 19, 20. Like that effect gets blown because we make an attack. It'll have a higher chance but not guaranteed to crit. Critting is another dice mechanic that is technically a die roll resource. Like how often do you get to roll dice and what's the percentage chance of you doing a crit attack? That can be translated into draw a card also. A lot of different ways. Discarding is easier than drawing cards because you're taking away things like disadvantage. It'll cost you an extra point of mana to cast that spell. You'll roll an attack with disadvantage. penalty to your to the damage that you roll. It'll cost you an extra attack or your bonus action to use that, sacrifice one of your opportunity attacks. A lot of ways that you can use discard to balance things in that sense as well. I don't know if you caught my stream from Friday yesterday, the Martial Powers playtest follow-up, but like we figured out how to do a sideboard, which is basically like martial characters get to prepare maneuvers, and you have it's basically your level +1 is the number of maneuvers that you can prepare. But then what we had was a mechanic where when you take a short rest, you could swap out one of the powers that you know for a different power. And commentary from the feedback was I could see this eating up a lot of time considering how many options there are to swap. So that created the sideboard idea where you can prepare a number of powers equal to your level +1, and you can have a sideboard equal to the maximum rank of power that you can channel. So like a 5th level character can prepare six powers, and 5th level characters have 2nd level spells. So you could also have a sideboard of 2 additional powers. So when you take a short rest, you can swap any of the powers that you currently have prepared for any number of powers that you have on your sideboard. So like if I have Lifesteal prepared right now, and I have Thundering Strike on my sideboard, I could swap them. So Lifesteal becomes my sideboard and unavailable right now, but now I've added Thundering Strike into my array until I take another short or long rest. When I take a long rest, I can reset all of my prepared and my sideboard. But anytime you take a short rest, it allows you to access your sideboard to swap in powers that you think are going to be more relevant to what adventures are coming up. Kind of like in a best of 3, you have a sideboard there to swap in cards that you think are going to be a better result against the deck that you're currently competing against. That's a really fun way to lean into the mechanics of the MTG card game and expressing them through character, through building a character. And that one in particular, I'm proud of. That was really fun because that one just jumped out. It's yeah, you should have there should be a limit to how many things that you can like having an open book for you to swap out during a short rest is a little intense. I'm sideboard. It was obvious. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for the bless. But yeah, super fun. It's once you start building an internal system that has mechanics that a self-reinforcing system of consistent mechanics that kind of lock together to build a flavor for the type of game that you want to run, it becomes easier and easier to see how new ideas can slide into the mechanical space that you've built. It's sideboarding is something that like when a wizard, for example, when a wizard uses their arcane recovery ability, 1 short rest per day, they can regain a number of mana equal to half their wizard level, and they can access a sideboard. So however many points of mana you recover is the number of spell levels that you can swap out with your sideboard. So at 2nd level, you can only have 1 1st level spell on your sideboard. When you get to 4th level, you can have a second, up to 2 levels worth of spells on your sideboard, whether 2 1st level spells or a 2nd level spell, for instance. Because spellcasters have a much deeper pool and higher levels that they can attain, having 1 spell per level of power is too much. For a half caster, it's going to be at most 5. But for a wizard, that could be 9. And that's huge. So instead, making it 9 levels worth of spells that they can swap during an arcane recovery, that lets them gamify. Do I want to have a bunch of low-level spells that I can rotate through and have more low-level utility, or do I want to have a couple 9th level spells available that I could potentially cater to what I think is going to come up and not necessarily lock down my high-level magic for the day? Is that different? It's the same idea, but it's structured slightly different, which is like what a lot of martial powers is. It's like martial powers is spell casting, but a little different. Like everything about it is a little different. Hits the mechanics just a little bit differently. Gishes a little bit more smoothly than just multi-classing into a spellcaster would. Because it's optimized around action economy. Like action economy is a really big factor in how versatile a martial powers character can be versus a mana pool spellcaster is basically gaining the advantage of the deep resources that a spell point system can use with more restrictions around what color am I using and what spells do I want that curve into that color. So there's a lot, like spellcasting has more rules, but it also has a lot more power. While martial powers is, or more strength, while martial powers is less, has less massive effects like high level spells do. But it's a lot, but the mana is more flexible. And the options that you can choose are more interchangeable. So it's a more instant, like martial power stuff is more instant spell effects, versus like full casters are more sorcery effects. Like they have, like sorcery, you have to plan out when you're using it, as opposed to instant effects. Is like, I have the mana, the opportunity arose, I'm going to take advantage of this and drop this effect. That's how martials feel, like that instant reaction or adaption effect versus methodical, intentional plans and strategies that full casters get. At least that's the effect I'm going for. So it creates these different tiers, like different modes of operation that can still, like if you multi-class, you can have them blend together. You have to strategize off of your full casting classes, but gain spontaneity and instantaneous effects off of the power system from your martial side. So you can have a really strong Gish on its own just using martial powers, but if you blend in spellcasting with it, now you can start having larger impact strategies that you're weaving into the action routines and action economy sequences that you set up for free mana using the power system. So they coexist, but don't direct, like they only mesh. The only way they mesh is through the mana pool. And like a sorcerer paladin, right, having access to like 3 or 4 strike powers, but only having like a 5th level, like you like 5th level paladin, 5th. Let's go like say 3rd level paladin, 17th level sorcerer. So you have your 9th level spells and stuff, but you're only 3rd level as a paladin, so you're only ever going to be able to have 1st rank powers because spellcasting doesn't contribute levels to accumulating powers or the channeling system, while channeling doesn't do anything to add to spellcasting unless you have them both as a paladin or a ranger, for instance. They can build both. So a paladin Sorkadin would end up having 17. You can do 5 paladin would give you 2 levels of spellcasting, while the 15 levels of sorcerer don't do anything to improve your channeling. So you'd be able to end up having a 9th level spell slot through the 5 levels of paladin, but you'd never be able to use higher than you'd never be able to invest more than 1 mana into any martial powers that you 2 mana, because your 5th level paladin, you could gain 2nd rank powers, and even though you would have a mana pool as a sorcerer of like 90 some odd points in the end, you'd only be able to invest 2 points at any given time into any martial power that you learn as a paladin. So you've completely decoupled the vast pool, like the vast pool of the sorcerer can only be meted out 2 points at a time. So it's still a cool Gish, but you've sacrificed a lot of the synergy that a high level martial character gets by accumulating a lot of power and channeling abilities. You'll have this huge pool of mana from the sorcerer and a lot of spellcasting ability, but you can't really leverage that into your character unless, as a martial character, all you want to do is spend 2 mana at a time. But at 5th level, you can spend 2 mana at a time already, basically for free, by giving up action economy. So the 15/5 sorcerer paladin would be able to afford to maintain high action economy and not have to sacrifice any of it to spend 2 mana at a time to trigger different power effects, because you could be borrowing off of the sorcerer's deep pool. But while you're doing that, you're not using you're like a 20th level character, and you're investing all your time in 2 mana abilities, and that's never going to knock down the CR 30 threats that you're dealing with. So you're kind of in a bind there, where like if you want to really support your team at this high level as a 15th level sorcerer, you're going to have to devote most of your action economy into doing sorcerer stuff. And if you're just clearing out trash mobs, then the sorcerer can lean into the Gish aspect and just power dump on like 2 mana at a time on attacks and spam that stuff. But you wouldn't naturally be able to like put 5 mana into a smite ability because you happen to have high level spell slots or a lot of mana, because that doesn't translate over to what your strike powers can do, if that makes sense. It's creating hard divides that spellcasters can only leverage a little bit. If you really want to gish hard using the martial power system, it's better that you just play out a 20th level paladin, get all of your cool auras and stuff, and have a deep enough mana pool with a lot of free mana gained through action economy that you can gish all day and punch out 3rd, 4th, 5th level abilities like spells, or like manifesting 3rd, 4th, 5th power channels consistently throughout the entire day. Anyway, Bob's your uncle. But that basically, that rant is basically trying to provide example of how the way that you build the mechanics inside of the games or the house rules that you do influence and inform the style of play that you want. And if it's well built, there's internal checks and balances that prevents a specific style of play to be superior over another. There can be circumstances when one is more optimal than the other. That's called strategizing. But it's not like Silvery Barbs, for instance, is like such a default, obvious choice for how to use a reaction whenever you're in combat with something, that it's broken because it's not a strategy. It's just it's a must-have if it's available at all. And the biggest problem with most Gish attempts is that they don't properly deal with the disparage of how much mana full casters get compared to like the resources that you can provide in the more martial classes. Like the martial classes generally have cool instant or like dice effect stuff. Because their resources are limited, you want to give them more bang for your buck. But if you don't take into account how full casters are going to skew your power supply, it becomes optimal to have like a 5-15 split or like a 9-11 split, because you're going to get that extra juice. But if you throttle how much mana a spellcaster is able to put into their martial powers in the first place, then it's not an obvious strategy anymore. And building a hybrid class like that has weaknesses built in compared to single class builds of either power or spellcasting. Mega rant. Just picked up a copy. Oh my god, thanks, Zona. Did you really? Oh my god, thanks, Zona. Well, if you just bought it, when I woke up this morning, I had 100 copies sold. So if you just bought my 101st copy, within the hour, it should be a silver medal instead of copper. So thank you. That's fucking awesome. You made my day, my man. I was hoping to gain a silver medal today on the Spelljammer book, and that one sale is all I needed to get there. So thank you. That's fucking awesome. I hope you enjoy it. I don't know if you're planning on running any Spelljammer stuff anytime soon. I know that we've talked a lot about Tap on Tap, and that I think you run third edition games as much, or if not more than 5th edition. But the general mechanics that are in the Spelljammer book work just as well for 3rd edition. The action economy is a little different because of the way that they break down. Like there's no swift actions in 5e, but you could use swift actions in the combat system. It's not directly referenced, but you could certainly, like, things that can use swift actions, pilots can do by upscaling to do as a pilot inside their ship. So like if you're using Tome of Battle, I'm looking forward to getting the Martial Powers book published, because then I can start coding all the martial powers stuff for use with Spelljammer, so that you could have a martial pilot using martial powers to amplify what you're doing on your ship. And once the mecha book comes out, then a martial pilot would basically be able to juice up strikes and stuff on their mecha weapons. I'm really looking forward to those things working together. Very, very much looking forward to those things working together. But I got to get the Powers book published first, so I probably won't have the Pilot Powers book until probably mid-year next year. Like May 2025 is probably realistic for the Pilot Powers. Anyway, show goes on. I'm hoping Martial Powers will publish like around March next year, like basically a year from now. And yeah, and then build out common language for the color mana system in Spelljammer. Have them all blend together elegantly. Excited about that. But that was my timer for the day, so I'm just finishing off this rock. This one feels pretty good. You got me monologuing again, you old dog. Well, I mean, the thing is playtestable. You know, it's the document. It's on my Patreon, and it's open access. It's just a read-only document, so you can build with it as much as you want. And I'll just be going through the entire creation process here online, like I did for Spelljammer, like I'm doing currently for the Eberron book. Basically, taking it from creation through completion, ideation to publication. It's just, and if you're really interested, playtest. We're gonna have a playtest game. We're still trying to figure out what day it is, and we're having a vote for what day of the week we should do it. I'm available Monday nights, Thursday nights, Saturday mornings, but it's going to end up sacrificing one of my streams to do so. So it'd basically be like we'll do level 3 for a month, and then we'll do level 5 for a month, and then level 7 for a month, and then level 9 for a month, and that'll finish us in August at basically. And then once that's all locked down, in the meantime, I'll just be running that as a roll belt campaign, and whatever observations we make during that playtesting that requires fiddling will be my lunch development stream will be basically analyzing how the playtest from that week went, and then updating the document off of the feedback that we got and the observations that were made, and flesh out the DM section so that we have all the tech in there for DMs to be able to have creatures use these powers alongside the players to use against them, or to challenge them with these different power ideas as well. So if you're interested, you are more than welcome to participate. Just drop into my Discord, or if you spend $1 on my Patreon, you get early access to the voting rights to potentially lock in the date that you would prefer as opposed to anyone else. Because if there's between those 3 days, if there's a tie, the Discord server will break the tie. But if there's a clear winner, if there's any majority on the Patreon, then that'll be the day of the week that we do it, because that's where my paying members are requesting, and they're giving me money, so they get first rights. And if you're a paying member of the Patreon, then you get first right to a chair, regardless of what day it may be. And if there's any seats that are left over, then we'll farm those out to the Discord channel. But it's only $1, so hopefully that's, if it's important to somebody, hopefully they decide that's worth the investment to have a good 4-month campaign with me DMing. And then I'm going to need to playtest the Vokath battle crab encounter against Zealous fleet of 12 ships. So that's something that we'll probably do. I reckon we'll playtest that in May. I'm going to have my annual birthday week off in May, and my plan is to playtest Spelljammer for a bit. Spend a day or two doing that just to make sure that the fleet mechanics with Vokath's Mega Crab work out the way that I want them to, so there's a decent chance that the team can fight off Zealous fleet and change the course of the campaign. So you can keep an eye out for that as well if you're interested. But I am just about done for the day. My alarm popped. I'm basically brunch will happen. My Saturday brunch time will trigger basically when the girl gives me a call. So I want to get off stream before that happens. And I'm just a few paint strokes away from being there. So, yeah, right on, man. Thanks a lot. I'm looking at it, but I'm still working out the conversions. For example, many classes in 2.5 have dice associated with their class and not. So, oh yeah, good point. Good point. Well, you just have to build the subclasses into prestige classes then. Bam! I feel like that's good. So I'm going to save that. And we're going to go to File, Save as, PNG. And let you be known as Cluster 44. So I have 3 rocks and 6 clusters left. I think we'll be able to get that finished up. Maybe Monday? We'll figure out what my timing is on stuff, but I'm anxious to get this into a bundle with the Spelljammer book. This packet that we're building, since you bought the book, when you see the bundle, it'll only be $1. So it should be a pretty easy grab for anyone that's interested in having space debris. But okay, great. So that's it. We'll save there. I'm gonna shut myself down. Peace out, Zona. And Willie Bird, man, thanks for swinging by. I hope you have a fantastic semester and that closes down easily for you. And anyone else that's here in the future, hey, I'll be back around Monday morning making more map and token assets for Eberron. Monday lunch, we'll be back with Marshall Powers, continuing to develop that for DMs. And Monday night, we'll continue working on Spelljammer art assets, whether it being Vokath's battleship or finishing out these tokens. I'm not sure exactly what, but we'll be there. So hope to see you there too. Later, guys.